Hi everyone, Professor Deb Cricken again. So I appreciate everybody submitting their UR link on the discussion board in Blackboard just to demonstrate your progress in this asynchronous class, which is really critical. I can only give credit when I see the work on the blog as well as that you post into the discussion board so that we can all share our comments and so forth. So this week, you are submitting your sketches, and we're looking at the sketches to review them. And the important thing in the review is you're deciding upon which one is going to be the best hyperrealism technique used for the sustainable theme. The other aspect is, and you may not have done this, but you can certainly go back and think about this when you do composite, and you can do another rough thumbnail sketch. You know, many people in the digital media industry do many sketches, and they're very rough, to just get their ideas out onto paper and to visualize something that is in their head, their thinking. So the aspect of our discussion board is you will make comments on students' posters and sketches that you have seen and their progress as we go along. So today what I'm going to talk about is after you have collected your images, and I will show you the images that I have collected for the hyperrealism that I'm going to be working on, working with the tools that you'll be working and utilizing as well. So I will, from here on out, just to let you know, we are moving forward, and from here on, we will primarily be working only in Photoshop. I will be posting these videos every week. More than likely, it'll always be Sunday, so that I can do this for you and answer any questions that you may have emailed me during the week and so forth. So let's get started. So first off, this is a rough sketch I did of my polar bear. I think I mentioned it in the last video where I was thinking that I would love a polar bear to be kind of like the King Kong of New York City, and coming in on a iceberg, playing King Kong and saying, is anybody noticing about what's going on our planet? And having a sustainable cause. I did talk about, I believe, a website that I will bring back and show you. But Zoom is not letting me jump around. I can only stay in Photoshop. So today's primarily only Photoshop on how to get started this week. So once you have chosen your sketch, you then want to go about finding the photographs that have the good quality. And that sometimes is difficult, which is why I've given you a lot of resources in the last video about how to find the larger pixel dimension, larger than 1,000 as best as you can get. And sometimes it's difficult. So sometimes there are compromises creatively. That is why photographers are very popular, because they are needed to go out to shoot the footage that one needs. And that is why it's invaluable to be able to take photographs yourself. So I want to just comment on sketching, because that's a big challenge for a lot of creative-minded people. They always feel that they are at a disadvantage because they don't know how to draw. And that's something that is unfortunate, because that is so untrue. And so there's some really good techniques. And these are the techniques that people who do draw and who love to draw and can draw very well, these are the techniques they have learned. And so I want to share them with you. So one thing that's important, and the reason why I like to share this topic in a digital imaging class or a digital illustration class or even a digital design class, is that it's critical to understand is that most people who draw are drawing from what we call sketches, really rough sketches to help us formulate volume and space on a page. So when you have a central figure, and my central figure is a polar bear, and I did find a photograph that had a polar bear that had this position, and in fact, the photograph actually inspired the entire concept. So I was thrilled about that. And what's important is that when people are drawing, and let me show you some aspects of how people draw for animation. So now you look at the difference here on the far left. Let me get my cursor to be bigger. Here we are. So over here on the page, you can see that the action is a little distorted, kind of awkward, not really giving you the energy of the action. And so when you're drawing, look at how they draw the lines that are the flow of the gesture. So that's very important to remember when you're looking, and it doesn't have to be figures. It could be furniture, it could be props, it could be a landscape. Whatever it is, there's always a flow of a direction in form. And these just happen to be characters. But if you notice, the form is made with that one stroke of action. And then you begin to break down the spaces. So here you can see the head of the smaller figure and then the adult figure. And notice you can see the sketches sort of doing the skull and so forth. And so they're really moving the positions so that they're getting the line of the form with all the details, and then they're building the model circular forms to fill in volume. Now the volume could be squares or it could be circles. It depends on the object. And they're also looking at the rule of thirds. As you can see in this lower right hand corner, this rule of thirds in the lower right are showing you that the position is always a good thing to be thinking about when you are doing rule of thirds. And again, here's this line of action. And again, here's that line of action with the volume where you, and so really the thing that's really funny when people go, I can only do stick figures. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what you start with first. You start with stick figures and then you start building blocks on top of them. And then that begins to give you the form that you need, which is the circles and the form that comes around. And if you look at his arms, you see those concentrical circles, those spheres. That's how they begin to build form. And so there is a technique. It's not that they draw freehand in one corner of the page and they can just draw this whole thing out. No, it's never the case. So that's why when you see things such as this, that's how they get started. And then they begin to build form. So always remember, it's really great to take a drawing class, and that's the first thing they teach you in creating forms with your drawing to be first. The other thing that's important that I use often, and I will put these resources onto the blog for you for probably always at the end of the week. I put a lot of resources at the end, and I hope all of you click and see them. The only way one can get a lot better in what they do is to really do the research and the resources that I've given you. And so this is what we call a shot list for a cinematographer, but this is an excellent opportunity to see how people can do compositions as well. So you're in the midst of formulating your composition by your sketches, which is great. And that's what you got started with. But if you see something that could be a little bit improved, this is something that you can take a look at. So you have an up shot over here and you have a down shot, right? Second row right here. And that really is the value of these up shots and these down shots. That's how you can get really nice different perspectives. And that's how you create comic books, even in magazine ads, or even as a photographer. These things are all really valuable. So let's get started on our sketch. So you want to bring in your sketch, and as you can see, this is how I started with my polar bear. And yes, I went back and forth looking at my polar bear to get a reference. And for me, who love and I love to draw, is I always need to see something. I'm always envious of people who draw out of their imagination. I need to see resources, And so that's why I always love to go looking for photographs and lots of books to give as a reference. So it's important to know that you always can find that, especially today with Google Images and Wikimedia, Wiki Comments, that I showed you in the last video. So let's start with our images. So let me go through with what I have collected. I have collected my iceberg, my one point of view of New York City. I kind of wanted to possibly maybe have bones in my polar bear because he's, no longer at his homeland and he's hungry. And then I wanted to show you this. I had shared this with one of the students in class. This was one of my students who did her hyperrealism picture, and had a lot of fun. And I believe she was studying to be a veterinarian. So, but she has a creative itch, and digital imaging has gone a long way for her in her career to be able to create promotional materials for her center. So really fun to look at this. And I want to explain to you that what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks, before we move on to the next project, which will be web design, is that you're merging photographs. And I'm helping you to find the best quality pictures and the tools to merge to make it feel believable, as if it was like Eric Johansson's technique of hyperrealism. So let me tell you the number of photographs that she has in this picture. 1, the sky. 2, the iceberg. 3, the bear. 4, the bear under. 5, the level of the ocean here. 6, the city that is here. 7, the photograph of trash. 8, the billboard. And 9, another level of water. So about 10 to 12 images are in here. And I think she even brought some clouds in here. That is what you're looking at when you are building and reconstructing a photograph. So I wanted to share that with you so that you can see how important it is to be able to find the source. And sometimes those happy accidents can happen. You find something else and it becomes, a new concept or a new twist of the concept. So I'm going to put that away. And the other pictures I had was this. So this is one perspective. And the one that I think I like the best. And here's my polar bear, right? And then this one, no, that's assignments I wanted to talk about. The other one was my other New York City was this one. This was one that I really thought would be the one for me in my hyperrealism composition. So to go back to the hyper, what I did do is I wanted to show you what we're working on this week and what to follow in our assignment. So I actually, because I can't jump around in Zoom anymore, I captured my screen from WordPress. So we are now in the hyperrealism throes of Photoshop. We've got ourselves together with software, with our concepts, our sustainable theme. We are now collecting resources. So please remember to continue to collect images regarding your theme, regarding hyper, because we might be using those assets, as we like to call any production pictorial element or multimedia element of the project assets. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be blending these layers. So you want to start out with 13 by 19 inches. It's going to be vertical. It's not going to be horizontal because the best posters are always vertical. And so we're going to stay vertical. When we get to the video, that will be horizontal. And we want to stay with 150 DPI because 300 gets to be a large file. And for our purposes, 150 is fine. But if this was a real client, if we were delivering this for a real client, the resolution would absolutely be 300. The reason why we're working in 150 is because it's hard for you to find photographs that have that good quality. And so this broadens a little bit more opportunity to have choices of finding things because it's 150 DPI. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then of course we're doing print. And so the color system is cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. And that's CMYK. And so it's very important. And I do have another layer, another video for you here. This is the one I'm doing right now is an additional one as well. And so you're going to bring in your sketch and you're going to bring in the multiple images, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we'll come back to that. And so let's get started. So let's get my sources in. So the first thing you do when you are bringing in multiple images into your deliverable, which is called your final product, number one, let's go back to look at that. Be sure that you have created, as I said, I'm going to come up here to image size. And image size, as I said, was 13 by 19, 150. And that turns out to be right here, as you can see, in pixel dimension. So it's going to be nice and big for web. It's going to be nice and big for video as well. So 150 is fine. And that's what you want to start with, as I have spoken about when you look at the WordPress page, telling you the specs. So that's what you are given often, always in a project. So now what I'm doing is looking at my assets. So let's call one up. Here is that big iceberg. And now that I see it, it's really only the side, and I'm kind of looking down. So I'm going to have to create a level of perspective that's looking down onto this iceberg. So I will do that, but as long as I've got my side, that's good. So I'm going to go to image size, again, under image. And again, please be sure that this is the most important aspect when you're working in Photoshop. It's critical to remember that when you are bringing multiple images into one, they must all be the same quality. And it doesn't mean that you change the scale of things. Photoshop is going to change the format for you. So it's very important to remember you are not changing it. Photoshop is changing it. And that is how you keep the quality of the resolution with all the multiple assets that you have for your project. So you'll hear me say this over and over and over again, because you can really mess up a serious project if you're not paying attention to these details. So here's my window again. Again, I got it up here in the left-hand corner under image. This is your reality. This is not what you see on the screen. This is what is the reality of your photograph. So that means when clients give you photographs, if they may give you all different qualities, you must red alert them if they have not given you good quality photographs to use, because they will blame you, and you don't want that to happen. They were the source, and so you're letting them know if something's not usable right off the bat in the very, very beginning of the project. So right now, the only photograph I could get of this iceberg that I have so far is 300 DPI, which is good, which is excellent. Lots of pixel dimensions. And remember, this is for print. This is not for web. It's a whole other story for web. This is only for print. So I am going by the guidelines for only print, not for web. So that's another important distinction here. And we'll talk about the web work as we go along. But for print, this is critically important. So this is my reality. So I have 19 inches by 10, which is pretty good as far as the width is concerned. Height 10, 300. Now, I need to change this to my deliverable, which is the 150 DPI. So what you must do, and yours may be toggled on, is the resampling. That's all you have to do on this, is the resampling must be toggled off. Yours may be on. So I'm going to toggle it off. Now watch what happens to the size when I change it to 150. The picture actually got bigger because I've gone down in quality. And so they say that I can sustain and retain this quality and get you to be bigger because you are smaller. Now, if I went to 600 DPI, watch what happens. 600. The original source is 300. I'm going to 600. Now look how big it is. It's small because it's trying to sustain the quality of what the photograph actually is, as is. So going 150, I'm at an advantage. So I have that, and we say, okay, good. Now, the important thing here is that I need to bring this into my deliverable. There are multiple ways. 2 are the most important, and we're going to talk about that. One way is to go here, but I should be on my deliverable. So I go to my deliverable, and I would have to have saved this. So let's do a save as. You never overwrite your original source. So please remember that. You never overwrite your original source. So I'm just going to say iceberg 02. Here's the original one up here. And that's going to save, and I want it to be maximum, large file, all the way. So I save that. I'm going to go to my deliverable. And now I'm going to go to my file, place. Now, if you notice up here, it's place embedded and place linked. So let me get a little bigger here. And spacebar, don't forget your spacebar. You can move things around in spacebar. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of everything in the screen. And you can also mouse down with the zoom key, Z key for zoom key, mouse down and just mouse down and scale it just a little bit so you have a full screen. Always bring your toolbars close to where you are so it's not such a reach. And up here under File, Place Embedded, the difference between the two, Place Embedded will bring the image and lock it into the document. Place Linked means that it's only looking at your folder, whoever holds that asset, that picture. So for our case, you want the embedded. And the answer or question should be, well, why do they have both? The reason why they have both is because when you do work in print and you have multiple photographs that you have to bring into one file, they could be gigabytes because they're 300 DPI resolution. The file can get so big that it gets corrupted. And so you're only using the file like a preview. This is so similar to music editing and video editing. They don't embed the document. They just look at it in the folder for your preview purposes of editing. And then when you render it, export it out as a JPEG or another PSD, they're just rendering it out when you want to see it in whatever export format you have given it. So that's the difference. So we do not need to be concerned with linked, but it's important to know. And we're going to do place embedded. Now, place embedded, here's my iceberg. And this is why you do that higher number, because it's right next to the original source. So you can work faster when you have these things. Now, what you see is what place embedded does, which is what I don't like. Place embedded forces your image to fit into the document that you're bringing it into, which is our deliverable. As I always call the final project is our deliverable. That is what I do not like about place embedded. Now, if I know all the photographs are going to fit, then of course I would use it. But I don't use it because when I am working, in most cases, 99% of the chance, I like to drag and drop my image in, and I'll show you why. So I'm just going to simply delete this. And now I'm going to go back into where we were, which is on the tabs. So do remember you can file open multiple pictures, but you cannot, and this is only when you are in your Finder. File open really only lets you, when I go file open here, this is when you can choose with your control key, and control key is great when you want to pick around, you don't want things in a row, and it lets you open all of them. Place embedded only lets you put in one at a time. So what you want to do, and this is how you drag and drop your images into your picture to keep the size that they actually are. So I'm going to mouse down on my tab, bring it down, and if your deliverable is not behind here, you can click it, just like I'm doing here. So if it's not the poster, you can click behind it. Then I keep this visible, not off the screen, but visible around here. And then I take my move tool and I mouse down on the incoming image, mouse down and drag and drop it. And you can see Photoshop tells you I've got it, and it drops it. And now you can see, and I'm going to close this now because I've got it in like I want to, and I'm going to take it away. And now you see the difference. You see the difference between place embedded or drag and drop. Drag and drop brings it in exactly the way I want it. Now, why would this be so important? Is because when I zoom out here under View, remember, if you're having a viewing problem, go to the menu called View and look at all the options that you have. Turn layers off, turn guides off, show rulers. Very important to show rulers, which are up here. I have them already turned on. Show rulers, really important thing to do. And so I've zoomed out because I need my scale tool, and the scale tool is right under Edit, and it's under Transform. Lots of things. There's a flip horizontal on the bottom or flip vertical, which is always ask the software what you want it to do and then find the tool that does it. So it's not knowing where the tools are. That's always helpful. But it's really the most important thing is to ask the question, I want to do this, and what tool will give me the opportunity to do that? That's when you have to find it. And trust me, I have to scramble just like you because I'm in multiple programs, and I have to kind of go, where is that again? Where is that again? And then it all comes back, which is why I love the computer, because it's all here under your cursor as far as tools are concerned. So again, back to Edit, back to Transform, and look up here. Free Transform is Control T. So Control T is going to give me the Transform tool. So I come back over here, Control T, and now I have the full scale of the picture. You do not need the Shift key down on this. You don't want to scale it. You do not want to scale your picture on the sides, even though you can. You don't want Shift key down, which is different than Illustrator. Illustrator, you must have the Shift key down. So in Photoshop, you do not. It's always good when you scale is to do it on the corners. And so now you can see that I can bring in my layer, such as this. Now I don't have the perspective, so I'm going to kind of leave this kind of big still. So the important thing, let me go back to my original size. The important thing about scaling things is that once you scale it down, and then maybe the next day you open up your file and you scale it big, you're going to lose the resolution. So the rule of thumb, which is the most critical thumb to remember in Photoshop, is what, and this is mostly for print, remember this is for print, is you can scale down always. Always, always you can scale down. You can never, never, never scale up bigger. As soon as you do that, you're going to lose the quality of the resolution of your photograph. And I'm assuming your photograph is of good quality. Now, if you're going to blur it, you don't have to worry about anything I'm talking about, because then you can blow it up and then you can just make it blurry and they don't see the bad resolution. But when you want good resolution, the rule of thumb is you can't scale up for print. You can scale down always. So I'm just going to leave this as it is because I'm not too sure of the perspective yet, and I want to keep it big. So, and to accept an image when you drag down, the easiest thing is to double click it. Now there's an arrow up here, but Zoom is hiding it on me. So I'm having a hard time getting to it. So I always do double click on the actual image. And that means that the layer has accepted the layer that you just brought in. And I turn it off. Let's go to the next one then. Here's my other one, mouse down. Now I'll go a little faster because we'll be doing the tools again. Again, here's my image. I've got to get it formatted so it's the same size, image size. Here's my image size. This one is not such good quality. It's still big, but watch what happens when I need to get it to be 150. Okay, that's still pretty good, 13 inches, all good. Bring it down, get my move tool, mouse down, drag it in. There it is, all good. Say no to the save on this because it's an original source. So here's one. Here's my layer again, turn that off. Next one, let's bring it down. Bring the image size up. And as you can see, as I do this, again, not so great, but that's okay. Remember the toggle is off. The toggle is off, 150. Keep it 150, okay. Mouse down, bring it up. Okay, close it down, nope. Not as big as I'd like, but maybe you'll get something out of it. Next one, New York City large. This one I do want. I sure hope the resolution is good. Mouse down with the tab. I'm still on that photograph. Make sure you're not on this one. Your deliverable. Up to image size. Not too bad. 150 again. I think I might have it. 14. My width is 13. So far, so good. And move it over. Mouse down with the move tool. Drag and drop it. Good. Nice. Just what I want. No, don't want to change that resolution. And next one, another perspective. Mouse down. Again, image size. Very good. Nice and big, 150. Sample off, off, off. Mouse down, move tool, drag and drop. And what's important to remember is you want to bring in, and look how nice and big this is. Just perfect. And now you see why I love the drag and drop. And here comes my polar bear. Okay, polar bear. Oh, don't know how big you are, but I hope you are big. Image size. Image size, polar bear, oh, it's 300. Let's do image size again. Am I sure? Am I on the right file? Let's click it. Yep, here's the layers. Image size, change to 150. And it does change it. There's a 150, so it's 12. Oh, it's not too bad. And what's important to remember is you see how it's locked. You never start your project on one of the sources or assets. You always want to keep your assets separate from your project. Okay, all good. Mouse down, bring him in. He just makes it. which is great. No, I gotta change that. Okay, so now we have, let me get a little closer. Again, remember, mouse down with the zoom to get big. And view 100%. That's how big it is for print. And when you get close, the resolution will just be lovely, simply lovely. That's hard. That's half the battle, is finding the photographs. And if you have any problems not finding the photograph with the resolution, email me and I will help find some solutions. So the important thing is I have brought in all my assets. Now at this point, that was a lot of work, as you saw. It took time. And what you want to do is you want to duplicate them. So the easiest way to duplicate them is to simply highlight them, turn them all on, highlight them all, and not my sketch. So Shift key gives you multiple selection. Highlight them all and put them in a folder. Now they're in a folder. I can call this backup. I can highlight this folder, come over here and duplicate that folder. So you're not duplicating them individually. It's going to be duplicated in the folder. So now I have two folders with the backup of my assets. So if I miss something, if I cut something off, if I don't like what I did and I want to go back to the start, I don't have to bring it in again. It's already here. So let's turn that off. And so now you can mouse down and drag it underneath. So you can physically move these layers quite easily in Photoshop. So now I'll just keep my layer up and open because these are going to be the layers that I'm going to manipulate. So that is the most important thing that you want to do right now. And so I'm going to, right now, since the focal point of my, and look how I can drag this. I can mouse down and just simply drag and turn them all off. Here is my sketch. And so you want to use your sketch as a guideline. But as I said, you know, we want to have fun in this class. You are the client. You can change your mind. You have the power to do that. So it's important to know that you're at an advantage. And, you know, as I always comment to people, you are working for your creative self. And that's really fun. And so you want to do your best work and you really want to push the envelope on your creativity and let me be the one to help you make that happen. So let's do that. So my focal point is my polar bear. So that's the first thing I'm going to bring in. Always bring in your polar bear always bring down your, don't bring in your polar bear all the time. Bring in your focal point, your focal star of your poster. So you can see, I don't want them pointing that way. I want them pointing the other way. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do to my edit and I'm going to flip them. Flip, 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 horizontal. There he goes. And let's see the rule of thirds. If you had watched those videos that I had asked you to watch, let's set up our rule of thirds. The way to do that is, number one, you've got to have your rulers on. Right here. My rulers are on because the check is on. And here they are up here. The numbers across horizontal and numbers across on the left. So mouse down on the rulers, mouse down, and you can bring guides. So I'm just eyeballing this. I like to eyeball things. That is just basically the way I've always been. And I love it when I'm spot on or just a little bit off when you do check it. So you're making the rule of thirds. And let me turn this off so you can kind of see this. So hopefully you can see it. And so what you want to do is you want to get these rule of thirds to be balanced and proportionate to each other to see if you are in the rule of thirds corners. Because remember, the rule of thirds are coming from this point here. You are doing the circle. So these points, let me just create a layer for us. These points, let's just do a fill. Oops, don't want to fill. Why is that a fill? Because when I did my marquee, I have a feather up here. Now, I had no idea that was on, right? But I knew that the result of what I saw was not what I wanted. So I simply do a Control Z to undo, and be sure to keep your caps lock off. You're not typing text anymore. Keep the caps lock off, because you won't be able to see your cursor if the caps lock is on. So keep it off. And up here, I don't want the feather. So up in the left-hand corner, when I made the marching ants, which is what I just did with the sphere tool, you want it to be 0 on feather, because feather softens your edge. Now I'm going to do the circle again. Let's bring this up so you can see this. I'm using the sphere, mouse down. And do remember, to get all these tools visible to you, you must click those 3 dots right on your toolbar right here. 3 dots on the toolbar, edit the toolbar. Come on, toolbar, let's edit. Is this a zoom problem? Oh, mouse down. Mouse down to edit toolbar. There we go. See, I forgot, you'll forget. Just welcome to software, folks. And I've already done this, so all you have to do is to restore defaults. And that will bring everything back. And you can also customize your toolbar. So the important thing is you want to get all the bells and whistles so that they're always up front. People who customize their toolbars because they only do a few tools and they do that all day long. And that's great for them. They don't need any more tools. So for us, we need all the tools because we will cover them. So because they are all, not every single one, but most of them are very important. So I'm going to the sphere, mouse down to the elliptical sphere. I'm going to the corner of one of the rule of thirds corners. And I'm Shift key and Alt and getting my circle to come out. Now I come up here, I could use the bucket right up here in my toolbar, and I could simply fill. And then I have to get rid of the marching ants, which is always a Control D. So again, remember Control D, Control D, Control D gets rid of your marching ants. And what do I mean by the marching ants? I will show you. I can't do it. I have to do it on a layer that you can see. So I'm going to make another layer and I'll make it become black right down here. And I'll use my bucket and there's the black. Now you can see the guides that I pulled down from the rulers. You mouse down on the rulers, horizontal and vertical, and you bring them over. And so I'm kind of lining them up for the rule of thirds. And I'm showing you the marching ants. What do I mean by marching ants? I'll make that sphere again. Shift key, Alt key down, mouse down, which I'm here, mouse down. And there are what we call the marching ants. And they literally look like marching ants. And it's very important to remember that 80% of all the tools in Photoshop have to deal with these marching ants. So you'll hear me say marching ants, because the way you edit in Photoshop is getting these marching ants to be where you want them to be. This is very different. Image manipulation and image reconstruction, photo retouching is nothing like painting in Photoshop. Painting in Photoshop is way different than the tools that I'm showing you. We'll get to that, I promise. But the important thing is photo retouching, photo reconstruction. Those are web design. Those are motion graphics. Those are all the things that most people are doing in Photoshop, is correcting photographs, color correcting, all of that. They are not digital painting, although That is an industry booming and exploding as well. But the majority of people are image manipulation of photographs. So this is what I mean by control. This is what I mean by the marching ants. And the only way to get rid of them is to do Control D. And if I do a Control Z, it brings it back. If you go, oops, I don't want to lose my marching ants, you can bring back your marching ants on a Control Z. And that is an undo for all programs. So Control D gets rid of your marching ants. And why is that important? Because we have to get through the other tools that we need to do. So I'm just going to turn this one off, the black. And as you see here, the rule of thirds that I'm looking at, you want to be thinking about that for your composition. And you can adjust that. You might need a little bit more on the right or a little bit more on the left, but we'll decide upon that when I give you feedback about your rule of thirds in your sketches, because the rule of thirds was on the course materials to be considered. It's very important. It's a trick. It has to do with mathematics. It's just always visually enhancing when you do that. So we often do that in our iterations. So now I'm going to move this, and you can do an Alt key. So if you notice, the cursor has changed. So I'm just going to bring in and get these to be lined up for the rule of thirds. And so these are my points. And so I just made a duplicate on that. And that is, look, so that's the center. And let me just get this center. And then see that these are smart guides. It's letting me bounce to the alignment. Remember, alignment is really critical in Photoshop. And so now these are perfectly aligned. And so these are my rule of thirds. So the reason why, and look how over here on our layers, look how when I make a duplicate, they all were in separate layers. And now I've got more layers than I really would like to have. So what you want to do is you turn everything off but the layers that you want. And so only the 4 circles are visible. And you come up here to the hamburger, always behind arrows and hamburgers, which mean 3 lines, 3 horizontal lines. We call that hamburger in web design. Mouse down, and we come down here to merge visible. Merge visible means that it's going to merge these 3 layers that are turned on. All the ones that are turned off will not be merged. You want to be careful when you do this, because once you merge, it's very difficult to unmerge them. So now I'm going to merge them. Okay. So here we have our merge. So we're all good. So I'm going to turn this off. And, oh, no, I want to keep it on, but I want to bring in my polar bear. And so now my composition. Let's do our composition. So I'll put my composition above. You see how I move that. And you see now I could really get my composition to be in the rule of thirds. So my focal point here is I really want my bear, the head of my bear, to be close in the rule of thirds. Now I could rotate him a little bit, right? And rotate again. It's Control T. Not only is it a scale, Control T is also a rotate. So I could rotate that if that was something that would bring me better to my focal point. And it does almost, right? If I could get that head right there, I'm locked into the focal point. And then escape. If you don't want that rotate, just hit escape and it brings it back. So Control Z or escape lets you get out of whatever you're in and like, I don't want any of this. Escape key. So I'll work with that bear again with my circles. But right now I'm gonna keep it the way it is because it's pretty close. And when I get down to the wire of my composition, I might slightly rotate it a little bit more, right? We shall see. Okay, so now I know that I have my bear. And so what I want to do is I want to see, I need to get him to be in the position. Now, this is really tough. Look at all that lovely, lovely hair there. And that is a very, very special tool that I will show you in the next video. Not this video, but a next video. Because what I want to show you now is what you want to get started this week, the new week, to get started in Photoshop. So let's do that. So we're going to fit on screen, and we're going to work fast so I can show you how you get everything prepared in a rough mock-up of your original assets before you start diving deeper into the tools. So here we go. I am going to take my toolbar. Oh, I got this reversed. I always keep my layers on the right. Nope, not my path. Keep these together. You want to try to keep your layer, channels, and paths together. And I'll explain when we get into them. And my toolbar close. You don't want to have it so far away. It's a big reach. Have it close, right where you're drawing and painting. Or image manipulation, right, is what I should say. So right now, what I want is a really fast tool. Now, this is an organic situation, and I have to save that hair because I'm getting rid of the icebergs around him to an extent. So I'm going to take my lasso, and I'm just going to come around here. Now, I'm using, don't like that, so I'm going to Control Z, get rid of it. I could use my stylus and tablet, and now if you have a stylus and tablet, use it. That's all I have to say, because it's more effective. You're drawing. I'm using my mouse because you have to remember, I've been doing this long before styluses ever were created. So I learned how to draw with a mouse, and it was not easy. So I'm unlearning now. I'm learning to draw with a stylus, because even that takes time to learn as well. So I'm just going to come around and not get too close. Now I want that iceberg. I want that hair. I'm going around and I missed it up. Now I could do the polygon. Let's do the polygon. I actually like the polygon better because I can move faster. And if I make a mistake, like, oops, I can just hit delete, you see, and it will pick up from my last one. So this is a little too far away. So I could get closer. I want that hair. I don't want that iceberg, but I need the hair. And I do want this iceberg because I'm going to blend it into the city. And then there's my marching ants. So you have two of those. So now the most important thing is be sure you're on the layer. Everybody messes up because they're on the wrong layer, and I'm included on that. So what I do to double check, I just turn on the eyeball and turn it off and go, yep, I'm on it. And so now you have the marching ants. So the marching ants is helping you to extract the exterior. So what we want to do is we want to come up here to view, we want to come up here to select. You're selecting the marching ants and you're going to inverse them. And that is right up here, inverse. Why? Because right now it's hugging the bear. I could hit delete and watch what happens when I do. I just deleted it. And I do this all the time. I go up, I don't want to do that. Undo, come up here to select, come up here to inverse, and hit delete. Now I have it deleted. And then Control D, as in dog, Control D, get rid of that marching ants. Good, job done. Next one, let's do the image that I know I really need. So now I'm going to turn him on. And he is kind of really nice and close. I'm liking this feet down here. I'm liking it down here. So I'm kind of happy with where this is right now. And so I'm going to leave it. It just got lucky to be in that actual place. But you see how I'm making a comparison. And of course, I can move this. You can move this around to make it bigger or better. But I'm liking the fact that he is right where I want him to be. on here. So I'm turning him off and on. And so and I got that nice piece there, and I got a big, strong one there. And so now I have the other image. So I'm going to leave this for now. I can't scale it up. I would love to make it bigger, right? But I can't. So I'm going to turn this off. And then I'm going to go to this one. And this one is a little bigger and more dense. And now I'm going to bring up my polar bear here. So now I have this, and I could kind of flip this one around. Let's see what happens. Don't forget, you're in the world of hyperrealism. So reality does not matter. We do not have to be making New York City look just like New York City. So I kind of like the fact that I might be able to get a little bit more, plus this image here, where I have it. And let's get this other one above it. So that's kind of interesting. I like this water. I can always go back to get this water because I have a duplicate. So now you see, I'm just trying to fit in things to make things look a little bigger. Maybe this is New York in 2030, and the city has continued to keep building buildings. Whatever the reality may be, but I can actually see this image behind this other city here. Now, how do I know that? So I'm just going to ballpark it and guess. So I'm going to take this image. I want everything, so I'm just going to right click and duplicate it because I might need it quickly. So I'm going to turn this off. And now I'm going to use my marching ants again and see, let's see what happens. And I'm making it really sloppy because it would take me a lot of work to get in there to get it refined. So I'm trying to get it so that it's close to a little bit about what it is. I'm not concerned about the detail because I'm not really sure about how this composite is going to go. And you often show your work in progress either to your supervisor or people that you work with. So this comes around and so forth, and I come up, and I come down, and I come back up, and I click right there, right? I'm over here to the right, and I'm going to click it so it connects. Now there's a little circle that pops up and says, yes, you are connected. And on this one, I'm going to go back to inverse because I know I want the outside, inverse, and hit delete. And let me turn off my sketch because it's getting confusing. Control D, get rid of the marching ants. And now let's turn that other backup one. And let's put it behind it with the layers. Okay, now I'm getting New York in 2030 or maybe 2060. Something that is giving me an opportunity to really grow Manhattan. And so now, as you see, now I'm not worried about the edge. I'm not worried about over here, but how I can bring this up. So right now, I'm okay with that. I'll deal with it later, but I'm really still okay.